guys, welcome to another edition of the Bridge HC Online. I am the lead pastor here, Larry, and have you ever had to send proof of purchases in for anything that you've wanted? Think back way before the internet, when you saw something on the back of a cereal box, you said, I have got to get that, and you cut out the proof of purchases on the bottom of the cereal box, or sometimes they were on the inside of the cereal box, and you had to mail that sucker out and wait 6 to 8 weeks at the least to get the thing that you've been waiting for, right? I did that a lot growing up because I like free stuff, right? And one of the things that I sent in for that I thought was going to be just amazing was a legitimate Ghostbusters record. It was a small 45 that you could play on a record player, and I saved up all the cereal boxes that I could and waited the 6 to 8 weeks for it to get to my house. And man, it was, you ready for this? A real bust, right? Okay, corny joke aside, it sucked, and it sucked bad. It was just a commercial. You remember the movie Christmas Story, where Ralphie puts in for a decoder ring, and he gets it, and the message says, drink more Ovaltine? Yeah, about the same thing with this record. I put it on the record player, I get it going. It's just a commercial. Very disappointed. Waiting for anything can be hard. You know that. There have been things in your life that you have waited for. But let's be honest. When it comes to waiting for a difficult moment to pass, waiting is even harder. Today we continue our series entitled Crossing the Line, and we start having a conversation today about difficult experiences. And maybe what you're waiting for today is personal. Maybe you're waiting on a job offer. Maybe you're trying to figure out how you're going to pay for that large expense that is coming up, or a loved one is going through a serious illness, a surgery, or recovery from addiction. Maybe it's something that impacts the whole community. Maybe it's not just you, but something that is difficult for the whole town, like a potential raise in taxes and your property value going sky high, right? Maybe it's a political issue that is creating division. I know that doesn't happen anymore, right? But let's assume that it might. Or maybe it's a tragedy or a natural disaster that can be felt by every person in your town. Maybe it's larger than that. Maybe the thing that you're waiting for is a worldwide or national difficulty to pass, like any of the numerous political issues that we are battling through on a daily basis, or a war or conflict like in Ukraine that leads to a humanitarian crisis in another country. Or maybe it's a chronic issue like global warming or starvation or poverty or even a pandemic or an endemic. These are things that impact the entire world and become difficult for us because we want people to have a better life than what they have today. Well, let me be somewhat encouraging, I guess, and say that these kind of issues were also felt back in the time of Jesus. I know it's not the best for you to hear, well, other people's lives suck too, but that's not exactly where I'm going with this. Because yes, there was plenty of personal, community, and global difficulties that constantly impacted the people of Israel, Rome, and everywhere in between. But what we're going to focus on, specifically today, will be the personal difficulties that people went through. But here's the good part. We're going to talk about how Jesus handled each of them as expressed in Mark chapter 5, but in turn, we will learn how we can handle our own personal difficulties with Jesus by our side. So in section 1, we're going to talk about the story of the demon-possessed man and how even when we cannot speak our pain, Jesus is willing to heal. Section 2, we'll talk about the story of Gyrus' daughter from Mark 5 and learn how our belief in Jesus helps us navigate difficulty. And then finally in section 3, we're going to finish with the woman who's been battling a 12-year disease, and how our faith is defined in our most desperate moments. So let's go ahead and get started by talking about the demon-possessed man from Mark chapter 5, 1 through 20. Now, I'm not going to read the entirety of that text. We're just going to give an overview, and you can reference your text for the questions or even as I talk. So let's talk about the demon-possessed man, because this guy was possessed by a whole bunch of demons. We find out to be 2,000 demons who call themselves Legion, okay? And this guy is so embattled by these demons that nobody in his town, no religious leader, no doctor, no one can heal this man. As a matter of fact, there are times that the scripture tells us where this man has been tied down by ropes and chains and breaks through them all. And so because of the turmoil this one man has caused by the demons that are possessing him, they kick him out to live amongst the dead. His home is an actual cemetery. Well, Jesus shows up, and as soon as Jesus gets off the boat, this man comes up to Jesus, and the demons speak for him because he is unable to speak for himself, and they're the ones in charge. And they beg Jesus, hey, don't let us leave. I guess, in this sense, demons and people are a lot alike, because, you find a good neighborhood, you want to stay in it, right? Maybe it's a good school system for their demon kids, whatever. Point being, they didn't want to leave. And so they begged Jesus, let us stay in the region. And all of a sudden these pigs come by. And so the demons convinced Jesus to let them possess the pigs instead of the man. And they do. And 2,000 pigs are possessed and then go crazy and drown in the lake. And that's just insane, right? So the pig herders, the people who are in charge of these pigs, get angry. They run to the town. They tell everybody what happens. The people get scared. They come back to see for themselves, and then they see that this man who was demon-possessed is now fully clothed, talking sensibly, and not possessed anymore. And instead of praising God for this man's healing, they turn on Jesus and demand that he leave. And so he does. There's a lot we can learn from these difficult experiences or from this story. But the one thing that kind of jumps out to me is that difficult experiences are not isolated events. They impact multiple things. Realize that the demon-possessed man was an outcast. He was living literally amongst the dead, presumably away from his family. Now, I don't think the man was married, nor do I think he had kids, but he certainly had parents, and he certainly had cousins, and he may have had siblings. And being separated from his family had an impact not just on him, but on his family as well. And the town, think about this, the town has survived this man for so long that they eventually grown cold to the man's pain. They don't want to deal with him anymore, so they out of sight, out of mind him into the cemetery. But get this, the demon-possessed man's healing caused economical turmoil as well. 2,000 pigs died. That is somebody's livelihood, and they died. Pig herders spoke out of their anger, and as a result, their testimony about what happened caused fear. And because of that fear, the crowd turns on Jesus and demands him to leave, and Jesus leaves. Listen, if we are experiencing or walking through difficulty with somebody else, and we turn cold to them because we're tired of it or whatever, the longer our coldness to the pain of others lasts, the worse the potential consequences. Because there will be consequences. How we speak to others about our pain matters. If we speak negatively, the response of those around us will be negative. Listen, the pig herders told people what happened, and the people were afraid. Now, we don't know what happened. They could have manipulated the truth. They could have left out some parts. But whatever they said, the way that they said it caused fear. Now, on the other hand, if we speak about our difficulty positively, well, the response around us will then be positive. I mean, think about the now cleaned man. He begged Jesus to stay in verse 18, but Jesus said, no, you have more important things to do. He wanted the man to preach. He wanted the man to tell the truth about what happened that day. Why? Because the crowd needed to know the full truth. They had some context, but it didn't have all the details. And I know, well, at least in my mind, I know that what the pig herder said was false, or at least not the entire truth, because when the man spoke, the people were not afraid. The scripture tells us that the people were amazed. Much different response. And it goes to show you that when you're positive about your difficulties, positive responses will happen. But when you're difficult, or negative, about your difficult experiences, then the response will be negative. But let's just say that you're in the midst of your difficulty, and like the demon-possessed man, you can't speak for yourself. You can't speak about your own pain. Well, here's the deal. Even when we cannot speak our own pain, Jesus can still heal us. We just have to be willing. On the other hand, however, if we aren't willing, if we ask Jesus to leave, he's not going to try to convince us to stay. He's going to do what we asked. Think about this. The pig herders could have asked Jesus to bring back their herd. I mean, he healed a man who nobody else was able to heal. Surely he could have resuscitated some dead pigs. And not to mention that the crowd who came angry could have asked for clarity and could have asked for their own healing, but instead looked at what Jesus had done, listened to the testimony of the pig herders, and demanded that he leave. And that's where we're going to hold off or hang on as we head into our first discussion section of the day. And here are your 3 questions. And as always, you don't have to answer all 3 of these. You can pick 1, pick 2, pick all 3. It doesn't matter. Just try to have a discussion that lasts about 10 minutes. Okay. So here's question number 1: Are difficult events isolated events, or do they impact the people and events around them? Can you think of modern or biblical examples that would back this thought up? Question number 2: Are there or have there been people in your life who have experienced chronic pain, illness, or difficult experiences? How have you responded to their pain over time? And does it get harder to show love, compassion, or mercy the longer the illness, pain, or difficulty lasts? And then finally, question number 3: When negative consequences happen as a result of difficult experience, is it harder to believe in a good and loving God? After all, wouldn't a good and loving God bring healing quicker if that meant a better outcome for all? How can the Christian God be real if bad things continue to happen? All right, take about 10 to 15 minutes to discuss either one or all of these questions. And then I go ahead and push pause. And when you come back, push play. I will be right here waiting for you. Hey guys, welcome back. I really hope you had a great conversation, because through the story of the demon-possessed man, we learn about the impact of difficult experiences. But even when we cannot speak about our pain, it's important for us to understand that Jesus is still willing to heal us. This kind of reminds me of all the viruses in our world that people have been trying to heal and eradicate. And the difficulty it's been waiting for this. One such story is about Bill Gates. And, if you don't know who Bill Gates is, just Google him. He's real famous. He's actually really rich. And he has spent a lot of his money trying to eradicate polio from the world. And let me tell you, the dude has come close. He has gone from 388,000 cases in 1988 to just 688 in 2021. But, and this is the frustrating part, imagine getting this close, but because of political issues related to vaccines, that polio has reemerged. Now, what you might be thinking is, oh, well, it's reemerged in some third world country or something. Nope. A case has been found right here in the United States in New York. And traces of it has been found in the sewer water there. Can you imagine polio being a pandemic again in the United States? Now listen, this kind of setback has not deterred Gates. He is still working with organizations around the world to continue the work of eradicating polio. He is still willing to fight the fight. And as far as our faith goes, we have to act the same way. Yeah, we might have setbacks. Yeah, we may not get healed as quickly as we want. But the fact of the matter is that if we are willing, then God can bring progress or even full healing. Now, let's move on to our second section where we talk about the synagogue leader Gyrus. Now, Gyrus' story is found in Mark chapter 5, verses 21 through 23, and it continues on again from 35 to 43. All right, and what we learn is that when Jesus leaves the demon-possessed man and he gets to the other side of the lake and he steps off the boat, this man named Gyrus, synagogue leader, comes up and just dives at Jesus' feet and, like any parent would, begs God to heal his daughter because she is dying. He asks Jesus to come with him, and so Jesus agrees and starts walking towards there. Now, for reasons that we'll get to in our next section, Jesus is distracted and stalled a little longer than Gyrus would like, and they arrive too late. When they get there, everybody is hysterical. Everybody is mourning because the daughter has died. It was too late. And yet, Jesus says to Gyrus, "Don't be afraid. Just believe in what I can do." And so they get into the house, and as soon as they get into the house, Jesus looks at everybody and says, "Why is everybody so sad? This daughter, this girl, is not dead. She's just sleeping." And the only response that they can come up with upon hearing that is laughter. They're not laughter as a good joke, Jesus. No, they're laughing because they're hiding the pain, the incredulousness of the insensitivity towards the insensitivity of Jesus to say something so crass and cruel to this family when they're experiencing the tragic death of a little girl. And yet, Jesus kicks them all out, except for the parents and then 3 of his disciples, and they go into the back room, and what does Jesus do? He grabs the girl's hand, he says, "Get up, little girl, and walk," and she gets up, and she walks, and Jesus says, "Look, she's probably hungry, it's been a minute, so why don't you let her, get something to eat, but don't tell anybody about what has happened." Now, what do we learn from this story? Well, we learn a few things, but we learn first and foremost that our faith in Jesus will dictate how we will navigate difficulty. Listen, Gyrus is the main character of this story outside of Jesus, right? And so how he reacts is vitally important to us understanding what Mark wanted us to get from this story. Strong faith believes that Jesus will deliver us or get us through our difficulty, no matter how long it might take. But weak faith, on the other hand, believes that we are undeserving of healing or that Jesus is too distracted to give us the time of day. Now, our belief in Jesus should bring at least, unconditional trust, especially when we do not understand what he is doing. Unbelief brings anger, especially when Jesus doesn't come in our timing. Remember, verse 35, the other people of Gyrus' house did not believe that Jesus could do anything. As a matter of fact, when the girl was dead, they come out to Gyrus and say, leave him alone. He's obviously too busy. Now, there's a note of bitterness there. But he's obviously too busy to come and heal your daughter. So just come in and mourn with the rest of us. And not only are they angry, but now they have distrust and are offended by the actions of Jesus. This is what we see when the house is hysterical. When Jesus gets there, and Jesus says that the girl was sleeping, and the people laugh at him because of how insensitive Jesus was at that moment, at least according to their perspective, right? This is what unbelief does. When we don't understand and we go through this difficulty and we don't understand why God hasn't delivered us, we become angry, offended, and distrusting of Jesus Christ. But belief is the opposite. Because belief is the confidence in the words and encouragement of Jesus. Remember, Jesus reminded Gyrus to believe and comforted him and told him, you have nothing to fear. Jesus knew what he was doing. No one else did. And so Jesus wanted Gyrus to have a strong faith, to trust him even when things don't make sense. That's what faith does. Our belief in Jesus replaces fear with confidence. In verses 41 and 42, Jesus heals the girl, proving that his attitude was not one of insensitivity to the pain of the family, but confidence in what he was capable of doing. Gyrus had a choice to make. Gyrus could have listened to the mourners, listened to the bittered, listened to the angered, listened to the offended, and said, you know what? She's dead. Thanks for trying, Jesus. You did what you could, but just go ahead and go. Or Gyrus could have taken what he heard from Jesus and what he knew of Jesus to that point and believed him when he said, don't be afraid, just believe. And that's what Gyrus did. Gyrus trusted Jesus. That's why he led him into the back room to see what he could do. That's where we're going to leave it as we head into our second conversation. Our first question is this. When difficulty arises, are you usually afraid of what might happen or confident that things will work out? Does your belief in Jesus bring about a more positive response to difficulty, or do you have more of a belief in yourself that things will work out, that you are capable of handling your own stuff? Question number 2, do you unconditionally trust Jesus? Now, don't knee-jerk reaction this. Think about it. Is it harder for you to trust Jesus when you do not understand what he is doing? And then how do you handle the inner turmoil of wanting to believe that Jesus is in control with the confusion that uncertainty brings? Certainly the feeling that Gyrus felt during all of his struggle. And then number 3, does faith in Jesus help navigate difficulty? Do you agree with that? And can you think of a personal or biblical event where this was either true or false? And I want you to support and defend your position when appropriate. All right, so take about 10 to 15 minutes to answer either one or all of those questions, hit pause. And then when you come back, hit play, and I'll be waiting here for you. Hey guys, the one thing that we learned from Gyrus' story is that our belief in Jesus helps us to navigate the difficulties we face with confidence. Confidence matters a whole lot when it comes to our difficulties. It reminds me of the time that I went fishing with a guy named Ron, and we were in Minnesota, and we went northern Minnesota where it's nice and cold and the ice is thick, and the ice is so thick there that you can actually drive semi-trucks with houses on top of them across the lake. Google it, it's real. I saw it happen myself. Okay? And so one day I go ice fishing with Ron, and Ron takes me onto the lake. And as we drive on the lake, you start hearing these, crackling, the snap, crackle, and pop sound as the weight of the truck is responding, or at least the ice is responding to the weight of the truck. And so as we drive onto it, Ron looks over at me and says, "Oh, hey, why don't you go ahead and roll your window down?" And I looked at him and I was like, "It's 0 outside. Why would I do that?" And he says, "Oh, well, in case we go under, you'll have a way of getting out." And so I said, "Okay," and I rolled down my window. And he starts laughing at me. And I'm like, "Why are you laughing?" He goes, "Oh, the last guy that I told that to freaked out and told me that I need to get out of the truck now. And you didn't freak out." I said, "Well, you didn't freak out, so why should I freak out, right?" It's kind of like in the military. If you see, the bomb unit running the other way, you best keep up, because if they're not confident, neither should you be, right? Confidence matters. If I know Jesus is in control, and I know Jesus tells me to do something, then I need to be confident in that. We all do, right? That's what difficulty is all about, right? Or at least how we handle difficulty. That's what it's all about. So let's move on to our third section here, where we talk about the woman who spent 12 years with a bleeding disease. This is found in Mark chapter 5, verse 24. Now, this woman spends her life, all right, the last 12 years of her life, trying to get help, and only gets worse. As a matter of fact, the scripture tells us that no matter how many doctors she went to, no matter how much medicine she tried, no matter what she, did for herself, nothing made it better. It actually made it worse. And so she says, why not go to Jesus? Now, she's already heard about Jesus. And so she thinks that if I just touch Jesus, if I just touch his cloak, if I sneak up behind him, like a ninja, and touch his cloak, then I'll be healed. And that's exactly what she does. There's a crowd that is pressing in on Jesus. She sneaks through the crowd, she touches his cloak, and she's healed. But Jesus notices that some of his power has, seeped out of him, and so he turns around looking, who is this person who touched me? And this is where I love the disciples, because they're like, what do you mean, who touched you? You have a whole crowd of people touching you right now, right? But Jesus knows that somebody has just been healed, and he wants to know who. And so the woman comes up, dives on her knees, confesses to the Lord exactly what has happened, and Jesus looks at her and says, "Congratulations, woman, your faith has healed you. Go and do not suffer anymore." Now, here's what we learn from the woman impacted by that disease for 12 years. We know she came to Jesus. This is what verse 27 and 28 says. We know she came to Jesus after hearing about him. She knew what he was capable of. We know this to be true. And so she knew what he was capable of doing for her. This was her Hail Mary. This was her last stitch effort. And so she sneaks up on him, not because she was afraid of him, but think about what this woman has gone through. She was afraid of being told no. She was afraid of not having the opportunity to at least try. Listen, our belief in Jesus' ability of healing does not mean and does not equate confidence in a positive outcome. We have to understand that just because Jesus can heal doesn't mean he will heal. That's a difficult truth to accept, but it's something that we do have to accept. Now, listen, we should always have hope that God will heal us or deliver us from whatever difficulty we might face. And we need to believe that it will happen, but it doesn't say when. Healing can happen on this side of eternity, or it can happen on the other. And we are guaranteed it will be no later than the minute that we are face to face with Jesus Christ. And so we still have to come to him. We don't know which one Jesus is going to do. And so if there is a glimmer of hope that Jesus could heal us in this moment, we need to come to him, because Jesus does not care how we come to him. He doesn't care if we come to him directly. He doesn't care if we come to him indirectly by asking others to pray for us. He doesn't care if we come to church angry and embittered and we just want to have some rest. He doesn't care. He only cares that we come. Because what we believe about Jesus dictates if we will come to him at all. If there's a glimmer of hope inside of us that Jesus is real and can do what he says he's going to do, we will come to him. Even in our weakest moments, even in our most difficult moments, we will come to him. That's exactly what the psalmists do when they talk about their most difficult times. They cry out to God. Even when they don't think he's there, they still cry out to him. We have to do the same. Because if we have an unconditional trust, or at least if we strive to have an unconditional trust in Jesus, we will come to him in our strength and in our weakness. We will come to him in our completeness and our brokenness. We will come to him in our comfort and our difficulty. Whether we come to him first or last, it doesn't matter, because Jesus is okay with being our last-ditched effort. Our faith can become stronger at our most desperate moments. That's what happened with the bleeding woman. As long as we are willing to accept whatever answer comes from our pleas to heal. We have to be okay with it either going the way we want it or the way we don't want it. Think about that as we head into our last set of questions. Question number 1, does being told that healing may not come until after you're dead, or that your difficulty may not pass until after you're dead, really helpful? How does the hope of eternity give us comfort when facing a difficult moment? Provide any scripture that backs up your claims. Number 2, the bleeding woman came to Jesus by sneaking up on him. Is there a modern equivalent to this? Has Jesus ever been your last-ditch effort for healing? And then finally, number 3, when God doesn't answer your prayers for healing, how does that impact your faith? Is your faith stronger or weaker in those moments where you do not receive the healing you desire? All right? Push pause and take 10 to 15 minutes to talk about either one or all 3 of those. And when you're done, hit play and I'll be waiting here for you to wrap things up. Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about the one thing, okay? The one thing that I want everybody here to think about throughout the rest of their week. When difficulty comes, Jesus is there. That's the thing that we hold on to. That's the hope. Even when we don't think he's there, Jesus is there. You know, this whole sermon led me to think about the times in the Bible where somebody comes to Jesus for healing and Jesus says no. Man, I racked my brain for a whole weekend because there is not a time that I could think of where someone asked for healing and was told no. Until God brought to my attention Paul and his thorn in the flesh that he talks about in Corinthians. Paul talks about how he was given this thorn in the flesh to deal with, and how he asked and pleaded with God, please heal me, please take this from me. And 3 times God says no. So there are times where faithful people are begging Jesus for healing, and Jesus says, it's not in my plan for you to be healed of this. You have to learn to deal with this. And so you're like, okay, that does happen. And so you can think about people in your own life who are suffering, and you can say, listen, I don't know why God hasn't healed you from this, but let's try instead to get closer to God despite this. Now you might be sitting there thinking, well, yeah, that's easy for you to say, Larry. You're not going through anything. Well, I have my own thorn in the flesh. I suffer from PTSD, chronic PTSD, severe PTSD from my time overseas in Iraq. And I was like Paul. I begged God. Over the last 4 years that I've been diagnosed with this condition, and I have begged God to take it away from me. And it got to the point where I felt that God was showing me this verse and telling me that this is my thorn in the flesh. This is what I have to suffer through. This is what I have to suffer with. Now, does that mean God will never heal me? No. He might end up healing me on this side of eternity. But that's not for me to know. My job is to draw close to God in the midst of this, in spite of this, so that I can use my difficulty to help the lives of other people who are experiencing the same thing. Now, maybe you're going through some difficulty right now, and you need someone to talk to. We are here for you as a community. You can contact us by any of the means available to you on the screen right there. We have our social media. We have our YouTube channel. You can leave a comment there. You can email us. You can get a hold of us on any way that you want, or you can come visit us live each and every Tuesday night at Books and Brew in Brownsburg. Now, we are going to be changing locations here soon, so stick to our website to learn about where our new location is, okay? But we start every Tuesday at 6:30 with worship, and then the conversations start at 7. If you don't like to sing or you don't feel comfortable doing that yet, feel free to show up at 6:45. You won't miss a thing. We usually take a break about then so that people can come in, have a seat, and get ready, okay? So if you want to contact us right there. If you would like to donate to our cause, we would love to have your support. We are a 501c3 and a brand new church who is trying to be self-supportive, all right? Until we can be, however, we need your help. Go to donate.thebridgehc.org, create an account, and you can either give a one-time or a regular offering. We would appreciate anything that you are able to give at this time. All right, guys, that does it for me. Until next time, as always, peace, love, and soul.